he kind of surprised me over the weekend. He came out and said, I'm done. I'm out of here. This party, not for me anymore. Not for me. Listen to this on ABC.
Democrats are cowardly. Yeah, they're cowardly. Their party is being taken over now by, every day I hear about a new, very radical. I feel very good about, like 10 whatever years ago, like I did lose fans because, I wasn't going to go along with some of this crazy stuff on the left too. I didn't change really on what I thought about the right, but I can't sit and just not notice stuff, which people seem to want to do because it's all about my team or your team. But there's some crazy stuff, when we're cheering for the Intifada. God, I'm out.
Well, I don't know if you saw Jay Clayton is nominated to be the head director of national.
Did you see that? He said, when we're cheering for the Intifada, well, you know what I mean. I'm out. I don't even want to say it. There you go. Yeah. So I think you're going to see more and more of that. He said he would vote for Vance. That was another question they asked. So if Bill Maher is increasingly coming over to the right, and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and AOC have all the energy on the left with this El Said guy and Mamdani guy and Ilhan Omar, then you're going to see a very different situation, a really different situation. And I hopefully, that shows a rise in conservatism because we're going to fight back against it.
Right.
You're already seeing Europe starting to fight back against it because it's not working. It certainly hasn't worked for them. By the way, you know what is working? Gold. I mean, it's not at the 4,800 it was, right? But you know who's been buying gold as it's gone down? China. Unbelievable story. I thought this was really, really interesting. They're just buying more than they've ever bought. Take a look at this. Bloomberg had this story a couple of weeks ago. China's central bank bought more gold in June. That makes me feel better about all the gold I buy, extending the longest buying streak since at least 2015 and underscoring a commitment to diversifying its reserves despite volatility in bullion prices. Bullion held by the People's Bank of China rose by 480,000 troy ounces to 75.44 million ounces last month, according to new data released on Tuesday. This would be of the week of July 7th. The purchase is the biggest since October 2023 and brings the buying streak to 20 months. So they've been buying more than they've ever bought since 2015. And they're doing it. Why? They're doing it because I think they want to diversify away from the US dollar, frankly. I think they want to limit our ability to have any kind of power over them, which is why it's really interesting when you see what's going on in the Middle East and you see us trying to make maybe some new friends. Think about Kuwait.
Oh, yeah, nothing better than a good coffee. You're right on that. Oh, yeah. Give me some coffee in a second. Good morning, chat. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Glad you guys are here. Had a good 2 days. My wife's birthday had passed. Had a good time. People came through and kicked it. We had brats and burgers, little finger sandwiches. And people showed up. Appreciate it. But yeah, let's continue. Capitalism versus socialism. I don't know why people think socialism is going to work, and it doesn't work. That's why people keep on fleeing to America, because it doesn't work. They want capitalism.
It's the UAE. We're offering a credit line to the UAE. Is this all part of us being strategic and saying, okay, where is the future? Are these going to be new buyers of dollars in the future? Because we need buyers of dollars, right? And look, I realize there are the Ron Pauls out there that don't ever want to be the hegemonic power of the world and don't ever want the US dollar to be the world's reserve currency. But you know me, I'm king dollar, because whoever controls the purse strings of the world kind of controls the world, okay? And I'd rather be in control than have China in control. But, China's no fool. That's why it's going to gold. If you're interested in buying gold, go to trishlovesgoldandsilver.com. My friends over at KEPM, Dr. Kirk. He comes on this show now and then. And Dr. Kirk and his team will help you out. Really great group and very, very transparent on prices. So go check them out. Trish loves gold and silver. Don't forget silver.com. So tell Tallarico is another example. James Tallarico, you know him, right? Down in Texas. He's trying to win there, the Senate seat there. We got El Said in Michigan. We got Tallarico in Texas. And he's actually up against it right now. He's up against it because Jasmine Crockett, who's supposed to be his buddy, may have actually done him in a little bit. You see, Jazzy thinks that she can't win because she's black, right? That's her latest line. And he's now getting kind of a lot of pushback from Texas voters, which makes me wonder if these two things are connected. Maybe they're not, but I'll tell you, Jazzy's not helping him. She's not helping her party. It's every man for themselves right now in Texas after Jazzy said this.
You see, a lot of haters got a lot of things to say about me and my race and how I ran it, but the reality is that there was a lot of racist, not a lot, it was racist. It was a racist race. It is what it is, right? But we live in America, as y'all are celebrating 250, okay? We know what this country is.
Y'all, we all are.
You stay here, you answer our questions.
Okay, wait, before we get to that, she said it was a racist race. So this is going to make it a little bit harder for Tallarico, which, by the way, is good news for those of us that don't want to see somebody like Jimmy Tallarico, little Jimmy, getting elected. Ken Paxton is awesome. I've known him for many, many years. And he's willing to take on these tough subjects, right? I mean, he was willing to put up a wall when the Biden government was tearing it down. And he was willing to take on those battles. Well, I think that this kind of rhetoric from Jasmine is going to actually help Ken Paxton. Tallarico is facing an uphill battle in part because voters don't necessarily trust him. Jazzy told him not to.
So you stay here, you answer our questions, or you suffer the consequences.
I'm happy to engage.
We'll
come here in just a second. I appreciate you being.
Jasmine's logic is about as sharp as a plastic knife. Good one, Red Hood.
And I appreciate you traveling in. And I appreciate you.
For my people, not for you.
And I think that's wonderful. And it's all right. This is what this conversation is supposed to be about. Yeah. So one-on-one.
So I appreciate you. Okay, Jimmy boy, glad to know you appreciate. I got to get closer to this mic. I realize that, guys. We'll fix it for tomorrow. This is the problem when I'm on the road. I'm improvising as I go. But listen, Jimmy, you're going to have a tough time. I think it's, and I also think that most Americans fundamentally do not trust socialism. And this is the direction they keep taking us in. And so it's good news, right? It's kind of, Jazzy's doing us a favor here. It's good news that nobody is willing to trust this stuff because, look, you have only to look around the globe and see how miserably it's failed. Everyone. I looked today at the UK. Starmer is out. He is out. He went and sat down with Prince Charles because apparently that's what you got to do. You got to, have the prince, King, sign off on it. You see how much I know about my royals, right? But he's got to get the king to sign off on this. He says, oh gosh, we did everything we could do. My work here is done. Here is one of the headlines coming to us from Reuters this morning. Big story overseas here where I am. My work is done. He delivered a short farewell address. It wasn't as dramatic as the other one. He was crying last time when he was leaving, and he is out of there. He's probably, in a way, he might be a little bit relieved. I'll tell you, Donald Trump warned him. He really warned him. He said, you know what? You got to actually fix your fixation. Fix your fixation. Okay, he didn't actually say those words. Those are my words, not Trump's. But he said, you gotta ditch the windmills, for goodness sakes, buddy boy. You gotta start drilling. You got the oil, start drilling for it, because your problem is energy and your other problem is immigration.
I'm happy to engage. We'll come to here in just a second. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you traveling in, and I appreciate you.
For my people, not for you.
And that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. And It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. This is what this conversation is supposed to be about. Yeah. So
James Tallarico and the Democrats have a problem, and it's a black people problem. And right now, they think that they can win this without the black vote. Black people are not necessarily liberals. They're more centrist. They're very conservative people. And right now, black people are having a moment where they want their issues addressed in this state. And they are willing to give their vote to a Republican. I know a lot of people think that's not a real thing, but it's a real thing. Tallarico is making the same mistake Beto O'Rourke did. He's betting on the white vote, the Hispanic vote, and the independent vote to get him over. But even if that's true, why wouldn't you want the black vote to make sure that you locked in? People are just asking to be heard. They're asking for their issues to be addressed. But one of the problems that politicians always have, they think that if they address black issues, white people won't vote for them. It's been a problem in this country for years. It's starting to come to a head.
What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you guys pulling up, man. Yes, James Tallarico has a major issue. For one, I'm not 100% in agreement with this brother where he says that, black folks are more conservative. That used to be the case, but more and more and more you're seeing, especially black women, be extremely liberal in their thinking, in the way that they live, and the things that they're advocating for. They're advocating for the alphabet community. They're advocating, for, the Decepticons. They're advocating for the pregnancy termination. I'm just saying, this is a real thing. It is a real thing. Now, he is right that you do have black folks that are looking for something. They're saying, what are you going to give me? Now, I'm for certain down there in Texas, they ain't gave that dude $1. I'm for certain that is the case. But they are looking for something for their vote. Now, I don't know what the issues are out there in Texas, for and what those issues. I hadn't heard it. I was kind of scouring the internet trying to figure out, okay, what is it that, black Americans, highly melanated Americans in the state of Texas, what is it that they're looking for? I couldn't find anything. So if anybody knows, if there's a 3-point, 5-point, 10-point, bulletin statement of what these people are asking for, I'd like to see it. But the other thing is a lot of Democrats, they believe, because it's happened so many times, that it doesn't matter. Black people will vote blue no matter who, at least a large majority of them in a lot of these, large liberal strongholds. Democrats believe that. Now, we know that is something that is changing in this country. I don't think it will be a 90% situation like that ever again, because there are so many of us that are and have moved away from the Democratic plantation, but you still have a lot of Democrats out there, those like James Tallarico, that believe that there are a lot of black folks that will just hold their nose and support this dude because they assume that Ken Paxton and the Republican Party is racist. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to start right here because people need to know exactly who James Tallarico is.
The Democrats have a weird candidate.
God is non-binary. There are many more than two biological sexes. In fact, there are 6. It is now existential that we try to reduce our meat consumption. The American flag is such a complicated symbol for most of us. Prophetic voices like Jesus have helped me reckon with my own whiteness, my own masculinity. Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front. No need to sit and cry over, your whiteness or your masculinity. They're going to call me a radical leftist.
Something that you love that's not family or friends.
I love, I'm just saying this because it's on my mind, the trans children.
The Democrats have a weird candidate.
Blue T Tallarico.
Hey, the ads write themselves. When the president says the Democrats have a weird candidate, yes, Lord, they do. Oh my goodness. How can anybody vote for this guy? Seriously. How can anybody vote for this guy? Someone who is talking about Decepticon children? Are you kidding me? Really? Are you telling me that there are black people in the state of Texas that are willing to vote for this weirdo? Seriously?
So I don't usually do this, but I'm doing this because I had the same sentiments as some of the other women or males, black males and women that were in the audience at the James Tallarico town hall. I just got back. He answered the questions, most of them. Like he said, he's not a perfect politician. I get that. Nobody's perfect because I'm not a perfect human being, but I strive to be a better person every day. But I will say this to James Tallarico's campaign staff: get him back in Harris County soon. I feel like he needs to be in Harris County almost once a week. And not only that, it needs to be put out there that he's actually here, because looking before, I thought this was his first time coming to Harris County, but no, it's not. But he didn't come to the part of Harris County that has most of the black demographic.
Because he assumed that he has y'all votes sold up.
So, I will say, it wasn't until the one lady got irate. Well, I won't say irate, but she got passionate. And he finally answered the question of, how are you going to earn the black vote? Mind you, 2 other people had asked that question prior to, and he kind of moved around it. But when that lady got up and said, I've driven 45 minutes and I want my question answered, I understand. Definitely needed your question answered. All of us needed our questions answered. I think the platform could have been a lot better than what it was, because it was said from 2:30 to 4:30. He didn't come out to almost 3:30. There's a lot of questions. Harris County is big. If it was from 2:30 to 3:30, 2:30 to 4:30, all those other elected officials should have been speaking from 2:30 to maybe 2:45. And at 2:45, you need to be coming out, because there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of angst in Harris County for you as a candidate. So therefore, if you're trying to build the relationship you claim you're trying to build, it's going to come with more dialogue, more talking. And that's how we're going to get to a place where we feel like we can get to know you and we can possibly trust you. And that's all I'm going to say.
The problem is that people like James Tallarico, they don't respect Black Americans.
Nope.
They don't respect highly melanated Americans, because they know that you're going to hold your nose and vote blue. Now, here recently, there's just been a lot of people that's just decided, I'm just not going to vote. I'm just not going to get involved. Because, people are asking, what's in it for me? And you have a lot of people asking, like, hey, how are you going to earn the black vote? I think the better question, if I'm Tallarico, I would have asked, well, what exactly are you guys looking for?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything. I was researching. I was looking, like, what are folks looking for out there in Texas? Out of their politician? I don't know.
Don't know.
Now, I know for me, as an American citizen, I know what I'm looking for. But as a collective out there in the state of Texas, what are those that would consider themselves highly melanated liberals or highly melanated Democrats? What are y'all looking for from this guy?
We in this room are locked in. We're having a conversation about how to do that. And sometimes it can get heated because we care. And this is important, and we can't screw this up. But we have the same goal. My sense is a lot of these trolls online don't have that goal. They're trying to push some agenda, they're trying to fulfill some need, but do that elsewhere, because we have work to do here in Texas. I know it was tense, I know that. But it was also something beautiful, because for the first time in 20 years, we had more Democrats voting in the primary than Republicans in the state. We had historic numbers of young people showing up in that primary, getting involved for the first time because they were inspired by our campaign, by the Congresswoman's campaign. Let's build on that. Don't listen to these trolls online. Right? They are trying to distract us. They are trying to divide us. And some of them are funded by Republicans too, so be careful about that. So we have to keep our eye on the prize. We got to stay focused. And, also funded by some Democrats. So, my point is, let's stay locked in. Let's stay focused. Let's finish the job that the Congresswoman and I started in March, and let's win this race in June.
There's more politicians speak. I don't know what he said, but he ain't say nothing.
The Democratic Party has a troubling history of taking black voters for granted. And I am committing to you to not make those mistakes. I am committed to working with the members of this caucus to show up for, invest in, and fight for the votes of every black Texan. Ken Paxton. I'm so grateful for this caucus and the work that y'all do every single day to defend LGBTQ plus Texans. We're going to do something extraordinary. We are going to end 30 years of one-party rule in this state. We can't do that work without
about each and every one of you. We can't win this state without winning Hispanic voters all over Texas.
Yeah, he's not saying anything. It's the same stuff. It's just politician speak. Just politician speak.
Straight
home from the James Tallarico town hall that happened here in Houston. This was a black town hall. There's one tomorrow in Dallas. If you're looking for the link, Morgan B. Talking has a link in her bio. You should absolutely show up, especially if you have questions or concerns. If you've been in our comments complaining about that man, go tell that man your complaints and concerns and have him answer for it, right? Also, too, in keeping with the purpose of this town hall to center Black voices, Black concerns, my comments will also be centering Black voices and Black concerns. So if you hop in these comments talking about, well, Black people need to, and I click on your AVI, you're getting blocked or embarrassed, whatever I feel like doing in the moment. So just keep that in mind. Y'all are too comfortable jumping in discussions about Black voters, and y'all have enough busy work with your own communities. Focus there, please. I do think the town hall, very similar to other events that he's had in the Houston area, was very high population of non-Black people, even though the campaign told us directly this event was to target Black people, was in a Black neighborhood, at a Black church. Bet many of y'all didn't know that. Yes, it was at a Black church. So, but I think there may have been some miscommunication somewhere along the lines.
So you got a dude that is pro-alphabet community, pro-Decepticon children, pro-pregnancy termination, speaking to Black people in the Black church. These people they're unserious, and that's why Democrats don't take y'all seriously.
Right.
Or it could have been like, just an excited volunteer that saw the event was happening and shared it on their Facebook page or what have you. People may not have known the purpose of the event when they got there. And that is fair. That happens. And so when I got there, I was like, okay, this is not one of us here, but okay. But we came a little bit later because, church. And people definitely came in with their church clothes on. So that was also part of it as well. Now what did help, there were 3 speakers at the start, 3 local Black electeds who are well-liked. I love all 3 of them. And they were very clear about the tone, the purpose of this event, and set a tone of reconciliation, acknowledgement of anger and frustrations, and this idea of ask your questions, make demands of this candidate. He wants our vote. Ask him questions. So that included Mayor Pro Tem Martha Kasich Tatum, who noted, we are still reeling from what happened with Kamala Harris, what happened with our Senate race here in Houston, here in Texas. And so I was glad that was acknowledged in that room. It's very important. Then we have State House Rep Lauren Ashley Simmons, who is just a really good rally person. She worked in organizing, so she's always good on stage in those moments. I feel like that she was very good at that as well. And I think both of them, they weren't in here trying to convince us to vote for Tallarico. They were in there to work in this kind of idea of reconciliation. And that was important. That was the purpose of this town hall. Then we get to my congressman, Christian Menifee, who hopped on stage and said, "What up, Black folks?" And so people may have been like, and again, the town hall ad did not say Black town hall. And I'm assuming for a number of reasons. So people may not have known. Now, I did see people leave at some points who don't look like me. It had been a long day. They may have driven from the suburbs. And it was, the doors opened. People started lining up by 1:30. At 4 o'clock, they were still taking questions.
Get to the point. Goodness gracious. What were the questions? Were there anything of substance asked? Or just another victim splaining, complaining session?
So people may have been like, I'm out. The Democratic Party takes the Black voters for granted. Okay. But at some point, when you continue to make that statement, it reads as hollow if you can't tell me what you're doing to ensure that you aren't taking Black voters for granted. This was my question. I have heard this man say since last fall, I've heard him say this probably 5 times in person at this point, that the Democratic Party takes the Black voters for granted. Okay. But at some point, when you continue to make that statement, it reads as hollow if you can't tell me what you're doing to ensure that you aren't taking Black voters for granted. That was my question. I didn't get to ask it. And so my thing is he kind of went through things they are doing, but I want Black voters to kind of hone in on this. When we say taking us for granted, what happens is they assume that black voters are on board, they're going to vote for the Democratic candidate, and all they have to focus on is getting you out to vote. So when we say that, whereas white voters and Latino voters are getting this effort to get them to believe in this campaign well before GOTV efforts, which usually happen closer to November. And so that's all I'm like, okay, but what are you doing now? Are you just assuming that, okay, we're going to get over it and show up? Are you actively coming out here and listening to black voters? And so he gave some answers to that. But that's my question. And I kind of like, okay, at some point you got to quit. You got to have some action behind that phrase. So he starts with that whole thing, walks through things they have done, things people didn't know, that he went to Prairie View, he went to Paul Quinn. I'm super online, so I knew all these different things, but people in the audience like, okay, that's good to hear. One person said, you all need to do better about blasting these things out. I didn't know that. Another one said, you had an interview on a local radio station. I get 10 messages from you a day about giving money. He's like, and I've given money, but it'd be helpful so that you're going to be on a radio station in my hometown. So I could, the same way that you text me about this event that's happened. So I can tune in and listen to that, which was fair. Okay. The questions. I get extreme secondhand embarrassment in an open forum when people get to ask questions, because I feel like people don't ever ask questions right. Here was good. I think people did. I was concerned we're going to have somebody get up there and be like, I just love you. You're the best. And that's okay. Like, if you love a candidate, that's fair. But the issue with that is that we're wasting time because
and politics ain't about love. Politics is not supposed to be a popularity contest. It's about the policies. And that's the problem with a lot of these people.
Yep.
It's so much about their feelings that they're not looking at this in a logical manner and saying, okay, we have this guy here. These are the questions that I have. This is what we're looking for. These are the things that we're asking for. Can you come through or not?
We need to get to people who don't love him, people who have concerns, people who are not convinced yet. We need to spend time on those folks. And so I think those people were centered in the space. And for the most part, everyone that asked the question was black. Now, were others raising their hands? Yes. But the black people was... and that's who got to ask the questions. We had questions about black farmers, which I think is important when you consider where black people are centered or concentrated in Texas. So Texas has the largest population of black people, numbers-wise, not percentage. And those folks are, I think it's about 4.5 to 5.5 million black people in Texas completely. 1.5 million in the Dallas metro area, 1.5 million in the Houston metro area, and another big group of them in kind of these East Texas smaller towns.
Yeah, what the Democrat Party always say is the black women are the backbone of the Democrat Party, because most of the black women, once again, are NBT in Section 8. Always. And that's what's going on. If these black women, you know what I'm saying, start being more conservative, so they're dressing like it. They dress conservative, some of them with the blonde hair and all that. Start voting conservative. But they can't get out the hood. They got a mentality. That's what's hurting us, man. The Democrat Party and the women lead them. So the men. That's the problem.
Which would include black farmers. That was a question that was asked, which I thought was a good question. Somebody else asked about how are you reaching out to black militants? Because there are plenty of people who are, got questions like, those are the ones that are harder to get to. How are you reaching out to that population? And then there was a person, I do know her, and I won't get into all that, but who was talking about just kind of annoyed with just the process, that how this was set up, and not feeling as though everyone got to ask their questions, which I think is fair. One of his campaign workers tried to hush her, and she's not black. I said, baby, read the room. We will riot. Don't do that. Even if we don't agree with, like, perhaps just the how it went down, like, don't do that. And so he did. I don't want to say he answered the question. He acknowledged that and said, like, it's on me to hold me to account.
Sound like a waste of time to me. That's just me. I'm just listening to this. I mean, she's rambling, but it sounded like a waste of time. No real substantive questions that I'm hearing. Why not just get to the questions that were asked and the answers that was given? I don't understand this, but let's keep it moving.
The solution to Tallarico securing this win with no hard feelings, and for us to say no hard feelings, because in a little way I'm still pissed about Jasmine, but
right, when it comes to the illegals, they put all the illegals in the hoods. They never put the illegals in the suburbs. Period. It's always in the hood. low income, always. And they think it's okay. Now everything's starting to fan. Now they're like, oh no, get rid of the illegals. Especially Chicago, they fed up. They like, get the illegals out of here. But at first they was cool with it. They want to mingle with them. They want to have sex with them. It was nasty in Chicago. I'm pretty sure other places that had the illegals there, they wouldn't link up with them. Like, y'all know they may have, you know what I'm saying, certain diseases y'all can't get off you. Y'all gonna go out there and just nail them anyway. Nasty. You know what I'm saying? Not saying, you know, they nasty. And that's crazy. Even the people in the Chicago police, CPD, they get caught with the illegals, sleeping with them, taking them home and all that weird shit. That's fucked up.
I also know her future is so bright. She is a 92% icon. I'm not too worried. Would we rather have a Democratic like senator? Of course we would. The solution to that man cruising to victory is the Black community. It can't say that we aren't being clear and telling them what they need to do. And if they still stuck on stupid, what the fuck are we supposed to do about that? And what are we supposed to do about the fact about Texans and being Republicans? They small-minded. They don't know how to think liberally. They're racist. They're patriarchal based. They're supremacist based. They're oppressor based. And they want to stay like that. They want to keep it like that. They like that man.
Right, that's a Democrat thing when it comes to free handouts and welfare. That's all Democrat Party. Democrat Party wants to keep you poor, keep you relying on them. The Republicans like, hey, get your own goddamn money, you know what I'm saying? And respect the Constitution. Democrat Party never talk about the Constitution. If they do, they try to use it and manipulate it instead of respecting it. We all been Democrats, so we know what we talking about. I was a Democrat. I'm 43. And from Chicago, west side of Chicago. I lost friends because I'm a MAGA conservative. They still stuck on the plantation. They can't let it go. They want more government, more daddy government.
So conservatives don't know how to think liberal. Conservatives don't want liberals. They don't like policies. The matriarchy is terrible. Of course, the patriarchy is where we want to be, and that's what we want running this nation.
In the White House, they like Ken Paxton. Has Tyler?
Yeah. The preference is Ken Paxton, who seems to be more in line than John Cornyn was, who I think we all could say and assume is a rhino. Yes.
Because that's something to offend. The offense is through the inaction. The offense is through not engaging with Black voters the way he needs to, addressing our issues. And I know they must feel like in Texas, talking about any issues that have to do with race are going to be an anathema to and a put off to white people. Probably some Latin people. They have decided, based on the lack of engagement, the lack of reaching out, and with these podcasters.
Right, we're not naive, chat. You know what I'm saying? We know both parties is not good at all. We know that. Because both parties got people been there too goddamn long. Over 40 years, that's too long on both sides.
They're influencers. Leftist wing of Democratic, like online politics for some reason has felt as though the thing to do is to have this targeted campaign. It's not a whisper campaign, but it's definitely an online campaign to like shame Black voters, to vilify and pillory Jasmine Crockett, and to be very up in arms about how come Black people and how come Jasmine Crockett isn't working her little ass off. They took away her district. She lost the primary, and now they want her to work. And Black people are like,
yeah, the 92% is something serious, but although that number is ticked down a lot, those folks that are continuing to support the Democrat Party, they are the party that is supporting the demise of America.
Some Black people are done performing. They're just describing what they see, and every time they do it, the same crime, like the description itself is a crime. Watch this.
I don't understand why the fuck y'all people do shit like this, because of all the fucking seats on the train, and this man chooses to come and sit right the fuck here.
It would be one thing if this guy was just kind of upset that a person sat next to him and he wanted to move. But what makes this ridiculous is look at the caption that he wrote. A white man chooses to sit directly next to you. It's not just that he's not at all upset that somebody sat next to him. This was an opportunity to film for social media and be openly racist for engagement. You know, he pointed this out for a very clear reason. And let's see what his comments have to say.
Right,
they always do that. It's so gross. Here's more open racism. They always do that. They love to harvest our energy, 3,000 likes, but they're scared of us. I actually hate when people do that. See, this is just maybe somebody who's just saying they don't like when somebody sits next to them. Yeah, it's weird. Here we have some more comments. They are obsessed with us, 766 likes. They're obsessed with us, have to always be near our greatness. Yeah, okay. This is just nothing but open racism. We all see it for what it is, and they post it on social media so they can get a bunch of comments that just validates the racism.
Right.
Yep. He was on an empty train. A white man sat a couple seats over, and this man filmed himself getting up and moving like he had just been threatened. Now imagine if the roles were reversed. A white man does the exact same thing because a black man sat near him. The internet would not be laughing. Nope. Jobs would be lost. The same people would call this valid discomfort. You know, the same people who would do that would call the other one violence. The double standard is not subtle, it's policy at this point. It doesn't stop at the seats on the train.
I'm gonna be the first nigga to say it right now. I think all these other races are a fucking joke to me. Like the way how y'all always in black people business, always worried about what's going on in the black community, talking about, oh yeah, black on black crime, blacks always killing each other. Should I walk y'all down the fucking street of y'all cultures and tell y'all about your fucking people? Like all the racist Latinos love saying that shit. Nigga, did you forget about fucking Mexico and the cartels? How it be people hanging from bridges and shit? How little 13-year-old boys getting dragged out their motherfucking house, a pistol put in their hands, and they getting told, kill this person right here that you never met before, or I'm gonna kill your entire fucking family. Let's get into that. Fuck. Let's talk about the goddamn Japanese Yakuza out there cutting niggas' fingers and shit off. Them and the goddamn Chinese triads out there disappearing niggas. What's up with that? Let's get into that. The Middle Eastern motherfuckers. Like some of the motherfuckers over there fucking on 12-year-old girls, shitting on bitches and paying them $60K and shit like that. Y'all out there cutting off niggas' arms and heads and shit, but we don't want to talk about that though, right? Fuck out of here. What is we talk? Like nigga, let's get into nigga Italy. We already knew that they was out there extorting their own motherfucking people, the bakeries, the restaurants, little businesses, shit like that. But now I'm just now hearing about how connected y'all are to human trafficking, them and the Russian mob, and the shit is flowing all through Germany and Switzerland and France and shit. What the fuck do y'all be talking about? Y'all be so quick to run y'all motherfucking mouths about black people and black problems and shit. You ain't never acknowledged none of your own fucking problems in your own community. How the fuck you gonna talk about your neighbor's kid when your goddamn kid bad as fuck and you ain't did shit about your kid? That don't make no fucking sense. White people running their motherfucking mouth talking about us. Nigga, I've seen the most white pedophiles this year. More than my entire fucking life. Fuck is we talking about? Y'all always running y'all fucking mouth. Shut the fuck up and worry about what's going on in your house. I always say, if you gonna tell a story, tell the whole full fucking story. Don't just talk about your favorite fucking chapter in the book, motherfucker.
Now, I'll say this. I don't agree with, this mindset. This is the classic pivot, right? The second the conversation gets too close to home, throw up, but what about everybody else? Other groups have problems, for sure. It's not the revelation he thinks it is. Using their issues as a shield is how our own stay unaddressed for another generation. The left eats this deflection up because the focus on compassion instead of culture, fatherhood, and behavior is just too real. Pointing at someone else's mess just doesn't clean up ours. That's all I'm saying. Some of us are just starting to reject the whole game completely.
These are the comments that racist white people
use when they get schooled by black people about racism. She had said stop racism, and I had a black person come up under my comment and was explaining to her how black people cannot be racist and giving her the history lesson on what, actually racism means and all that stuff like that. And then she says, you're the problem. No, ma'am, that person is not the problem. You're the problem. You're the problem because you want us to all get together and sing Kumbaya without you guys taking accountability for the shit that you did to a group of motherfucking people of that you supposedly came and got. Yes, a lie that you didn't, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to take accountability for the shit that your ancestors have done. You don't want to take accountability for what the Constitution says. The Constitution says that black people are 3/5 of the human. You don't want to take accountability for the laws that were put in place in order to keep black people from progressing in this motherfucking crazy ass nation. You don't want to take accountability for that, but you want us to come together and sing Kumbaya. No, we will not. We will never forget the fact that your ancestors used to hang my ancestors. We will never forget the fact that your ancestors used to rape my ancestors. We will never forget the fact that your ancestors used to take motherfucking our ancestors' children and feed them to alligators. We will never forget the fact that your ancestors created breeding farms in order to breed black people. We will never forget the fact that your ancestors dropped bombs on fucking Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, that your ancestors motherfucking flooded Lake Lanier, that your ancestors did a whole bunch of shit to fucking Lake Martin. We will never forget that. So telling us that we're the problem.
Well, stop voting for it then. You keep voting the Democratic Party. Everything she sent, that's what the Democratic Party did. Stop voting Democrat then. Everything she named is the Democratic Party.
Telling us that we need to forget the shit that happened in the past. No, forgetting the shit happens in the past is the reason why Nolan Wells is dead today.
Oh my God.
That's what forgetting gets you. It gets you to where you are so comfortable around you motherfucking savages that you forget that you are black. So no, we're not the problem. The problem has always been you white bitches.
That's fucked up.
She's hot. And usually I would get it, right? Because being called the problem is different when you've been told your whole life that everything wrong in your community is someone else's fault. But here's the part, the Democrats, they never want to touch. If your first response to any criticism is rage instead of examination, you kind of just prove the point that we're making.
Right.
Now, accountability and attack are not the same thing. One of them builds, the other one just gets views. Now, watch what happens when somebody actually leaves the environment and tells the truth about the difference.
Now, y'all know I've been talking about leaving the East Coast, which I did, and now I'm over here on the West Coast. And I'm going to tell you what's crazy. Hardly no black people over here. There's only 2 black people in my whole development, and I've only seen one black person, and that he works at Publix. I'm in a 99% white town, white community, and it's quiet, it's clean, it's peaceful, ain't no damn interruptions, disturbances, or discrepancies. Why in the hell can't we be like that in the black damn neighborhood? It's a damn shame we have to move to the other side of the world just to get and be and live the way life was meant to damn be. And that's sad. I've never lived around white people before, and I got to actually say it's very pleasurable.
Yes, it is.
Message.
And y'all know
Now, this is the one that gets people banned, right? She moved to a majority white town and immediately noticed it was quieter, cleaner, and in her words, more peaceful. Then she asked the dangerous question. Why can't more of our neighborhoods feel like this? Notice she didn't blame racism. She didn't blame history. She just described the gap. And that description alone is treated like betrayal by the same political side that claims to love black people the most. If your ideology requires people to ignore what their eyes actually see, it's not an ideology, man. It's really a demand for blindness. And she's not the only one noticing cultural shifts.
This might be controversial, but who gives a fuck? Can we bring back white people that act like white people? Like, I don't have a problem with y'all doing what y'all do now, but like,
Can we get white people back to acting like white people? Like, I wouldn't mind a Green Day band, you know, a Seven Avengeful band, a 3 Days Grace band, a Britney Spears again, you know, a Justin Timberlake or something like that, a Faith Hill, you know. Not too big, not too major. But yeah, like, why y'all white people don't make that type of music no more? Like, I loved punk rock bands growing up. I loved country. I loved alternative music. I loved indie. I loved ska. I loved punk rock. I loved all of it. Seven Avengeful, Tokyo Hotel, all of them. What happened?
Well, I'll just say this. This point is neither here nor there, but, you know, the music climate is oversaturated. There's a lot of politics in it. But this is, she said, you know, she wants white people to go back to being white people, you know, the Indian kids, the punk rock kids, the ones who just existed without the constant racial performance, right? That's a wild sentence in 2026, to be honest, but she's pointing at something real. You know, a lot of the old subcultures got replaced by a new one that treats grievance like a personality. And somehow the people who used to mock acting white now get uncomfortable when a black woman says she misses when white people just acted normal. Some of us are connecting the dots, though, in real time.
More people die get struck by lightning than black unarmed men are getting shot and killed by the police. Back in 2017, I was in the streets marching with BLM, crying my eyes out. I was terrified to be black in America because that's what I was groomed to believe. What were you most scared of? Being shot. You could have asked me in 2016 how many black unarmed men are being shot and killed by the police right now, and I would have said like 10,000 a year. Easy. And then I find out it's about 10 or 20. You ask anyone that I went to high school with, I was the most flinchiest, scary person out there. And it's not because I'm gay. It's literally just because I thought I had a target on my back living in America. That all the cops are out to get me, the media and the culture and the news keeps pushing down people's throats. If you're black, you are a victim. If you're black, you have to work harder than any white person. It really did a damage. And then it wasn't until I started looking into things for myself where I realized, oh, I was being misled and lied to.
The fear, the emotion, the moment he realized he had been living inside someone else's story.
Crazy.
That realization. That recognition is happening more than people want to admit, right? It's not always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet, I don't believe that anymore. And the second the sentence leaves a black person's mouth, the same activist who said, believe black voices, suddenly have a long list of reasons why that particular black voice just doesn't count. Last one.
There's a lot of people that's pushing for a race war, from the powers that be to random everyday people. I see it from both sides, especially on social media platforms.
And in the 90s, they had the music, it was good.
Anyone that wants a race war is an idiot.
Nice.
It doesn't understand war. We all will lose. No one wins in a race war. Look at what the news and media is doing.
Certain songs
They're
come out,
purposely
it was a party.
pushing a certain narrative, leaving things out, adding things in. For what? You have to ask yourself that. Why are they doing this? They know it's gonna, play into people's emotions. They know that it's gonna upset people, and they know that people are going to be triggered by it, and they're gonna respond accordingly. They want us divided. They know how powerful we would be if we were united as one. We can accomplish anything together. But instead, they divide us, and people from every race plays right into their hands. I'm not gonna choose sides either. I'm 11% white. My kids are biracial, black and white, and my fiance is white. Hating someone because of the color of their skin is idiotic. If you want to dislike someone, do it because of their actions, not because of the color of their skin.
Amen to that.
The skin color, but we all can choose to love your color.
Now, he's just simply tired of playing both sides. Let me get this adjusted. Yeah, he's just simply tired of playing both sides. And especially with the idea of a race war, like its content. And he's right. The people pushing the hottest racial rhetoric the loudest are really the ones who would have to live through the consequences. Most regular people, black and white, just want to live. The ones screaming the hardest for division usually have something to sell. I don't need everybody to agree with every clip. I need people just to stop pretending that noticing differences is the same thing as creating them. Clean neighborhoods are not a mystery. Safe trains are not a mystery. Cultural confidence is not a mystery. The mystery is why an entire political machine has spent decades telling black people that the only acceptable explanation for any gap is external hatred. Why the gap keeps widening under their leadership.
Sorry about that, chat. Sorry about that. Let's continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a big one. This is huge. Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has just released something that I think is quintessential to the Western Hemisphere. It is, by every way you look at it, outrageous. In a good way, right? In a great way. It's very awesome. And it pertains to Cuba.
Sorry about that, chat.
Secretary Rubio earlier today, I'm just going to get right into this. We're not going to waste time, okay? We don't waste time on this channel. The Secretary of State posted that for more than 6 decades, the Cuban regime has been the leading sponsor of radical leftism and third worldism in the United States. The State Department is exposing the full history of Cuban espionage and subversion in our country. The American people deserve to know. And it is a 100-page report titled Cuba, the Capital of 21st Century Communism, prepared by the Department of State. This document makes some major claims. Not claims, I think they're fact. Some statements. It's clearly something they've been working on behind the scenes. And this document, in my opinion, and in the opinion of anyone that has been paying attention to the Trump administration's foreign policy, is the framework, the justification for the inevitable regime change in Cuba, which I am a big fan of. I support, let me just state it very clearly to everyone watching, I support a regime change in Cuba. However that comes. I don't support a deal, let's make a deal with the communists and tell them not to be communists. I don't support that. I support a regime change. I support taking the current Cuban regime out of power and bringing a new one in. I support it 100%, like I supported it in Venezuela. It is in America's national security interest to seek.
Yeah, mine was SWV as well. Yeah, I like TLC. I like Left Eye. Be a sensible voice. Oh yeah, they was with it.
And to conduct regime change in Cuba, and for that reason, I support it. The Western Hemisphere is our background. It's our playground. It's our neighborhood, and we deserve to control every country that exists here. We are the top dogs, the uncontested superpower. We can't have Cuba, an island 90 miles away from Florida, being a communist hub of espionage, as Rubio alleges, and not just alleges, factually states. And there's a really interesting part in this report that pertains to Hassan Piker, Zoran Mamdani, and other communist, socialist, those types, the Ilhan Omars, essentially claiming that Cuba has infiltrated the highest levels of U.S. government. I'm fumbling over my words because I'm excited. This is huge. This section here highlights front groups and fellow travelers, fellow communists. And it quotes from a Senate report in 1966. There's overwhelming evidence that the machinery of the Cuban government has been progressively organized over the years to carry out its number one task, the export of communist subversion. Cuba moved rapidly along the road to the fulfillment of its role in the international communist conspiracy from the moment Fidel Castro's hatred of the United States became manifest upon his taking power in 1959. Ladies and gentlemen, the U.S. Secretary of State is saying Cuba is absolutely involved with these leftist groups in the United States, and it makes sense. The level of organization the left operates with, it's almost like they are backed by competent entities. Of course, communists are generally incompetent, but from a state level, they operate, as long as it's all about promoting communism, with a degree of competence that is respectable. With anything else, they are incompetent, running an economy, running a country. But when it comes to spreading communism, it's all they can do. The report says, while ordinary Cubans suffered the full brunt of their nation's failed state, frequently facing severe shortages for the most essential necessities from food and energy to basic medical needs, the Cuban regime has continued to pour resources into sustaining and expanding a wide range of ideological and intelligence front groups targeting the United States. These groups have played a key role in building, training, and backing generations of American left-wing activist assets and even domestic terrorists. As is frequently the case, this network serves both an ideological, and material interest for Cuban elites. It not only functions as a tool for the communist regime to influence and undermine American institutions, gain actionable intelligence, and build valuable political support for.
Yeah, my favorite turtle was Donatello. Since my name is Deontay, the letter D, Donatello Deontay, that's my character. So yeah, I went to karate school too. Took up martial arts, taekwondo. But yeah, man, the 90s, man, something else.
Revolutionary cause, but also as a source of financial support for the failing Cuban state and its decrepit economy. In this sense, the Cuban regime functions less as a vehicle for the interest of the ordinary Cubans who are subject to brutal repression and often unable to freely work, assemble, speak, travel, or provide for their families, than a one-stop shop political service for the rotating cast of foreign left-wing activists and groups that inhabit the regime's global ideological apparatus. And one of the groups is ICAP, the central nexus of the entire Cuban intelligence and influence network is the Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos, the Cuban Institute of Friendship with Peoples, founded in 1960 by Fidel Castro. And Rubio goes on to mention their ties to American universities, student groups, and activist movements. Both U.S. intelligence assessments and direct de facto testimonies have indicated that ICAP often operates in lockstep with Cuban intelligence. And this is a group that is involved with leftist groups on U.S. campuses, universities, all across the country. One of their involved groups are the Democratic Socialists of America, the National Lawyers Guild, the Code Pink group, Code Pink. Is that the group that wears the hats? Oh, it is. Wow. Okay. And the Communist Party USA, which is formally committed to lobbying for an end to the U.S. embargo and other imperialist policies against Cuba. So Cuba's communist government is in bed with the Democratic Socialists of America, the same group that Zoran Mamdani is involved with, endorses candidates of that group for Congress, for New York state positions. That's why this picture exists on The Guardian, because that's the connection. And so you might be wondering, why a report? Who cares why? We already knew this. Who cares? This is laying the groundwork for the inevitable. Rubio is making a case that the reason the Democratic Socialists of America have so much influence right now is because they are backed by the Cuban government. The reason Zoran Mamdani pops up out of nowhere and has all this support and gets all these resources and ends up winning to be mayor of New York City, the most important city in the world.
Yeah, I had to show my skills. I didn't want to show my skills, but I had to. Yep, I won. Oh, yeah.
Arguably, at least financially, is because he has the support from the Cuban communist government, the regime. And so Rubio is saying that's what Cuba has caused. That's the damage. And now the remedy for that is regime change in Cuba. Don't be surprised. Just like how when we ended the U.S. aid funding across the world, the political causes we were funding, the, surgeries for trans kids in Zimbabwe, like all these crazy surgeries we were funding through U.S. aid, it's no surprise that as soon as we stopped sending the money, suddenly 7 governments in Latin America are now suddenly red. They have flipped from socialist to conservative, Colombia being the most recent example. Colombia was run by Gustavo Petro, a true socialist, someone who hates the United States, had a contentious relationship with Trump, and all of a sudden, because U.S. aid has been cut off, and we're not funding these nefarious groups, they're not organizing correctly, out of nowhere, Colombia is going to be a conservative country with capitalism. The same goes for Bolivia. Bolivia is another one, a country that had been ruled by socialists for decades. It's now going to be capitalist. Chile, the list goes on. Paraguay. So Rubio is describing how Cuba's regime has been influencing politics, of course, focusing on the United States, but across the entire Western Hemisphere. Because it doesn't take that much money to influence the politics of another nation, especially if that nation is small and not that rich. In the United States, we have endless billionaires that are willing to bankroll political parties if they feel like they want something, right? The billionaires decided they wanted data centers. They wanted energy. So they, after decades of funding politicians that were climate alarmist, they now fund the Republican Party that will give them more energy-friendly policies, more policies that are focused on building new power plants, etc. Efficient ones, not solar farms, just efficiency. And so the billionaires are speaking with their money. That's an advantage and also a disadvantage, depending on what exactly they're funding. Right now, it works. It's cool because it's like, wow, you guys, we agree. We want a country where it's easier to do business, cheaper energy, cheaper anything. That's just good for everybody, right? But when they're funding like gay stuff, it's ridiculous. Well, in a country like Nicaragua, that's currently run by a communist, or let's say Panama, you don't need a lot of money and you don't have billionaires. So where's the money going to come from that could influence their politics? It's going to come from the Cuban regime. It doesn't have to be billions of dollars. It could be 2 million, 3 million that they stole from the Cuban people. They send that money to leftist groups. They organize revolutions. They stage revolutions. And suddenly a country that was conservative is voting for communist. And it takes decades to break out of that cycle, because once the communists get in, they typically make it really impossible to take them out.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So do you see how a regime that's poor, broke, like Cuba's, can still have the significant influence on the politics of the Western Hemisphere, while the United States, the global superpower, is struggling like, oh my gosh, we have to put out fires across the entire hemisphere. And we don't even know where they're starting necessarily or how to stop it. Well, we always knew how to stop it. It's just that the political leadership of the past didn't have the will to act on it. Regime change. They didn't have the will to do it. They wanted to negotiate with the Venezuelans, with the Cubans. But Trump has come in and said, look, we're just going to pick your leader up in the middle of the night, put him in Brooklyn, put him in jail with P. Diddy. Why not? Because that's what real gangsters do. And now Maduro's in jail. We own Venezuela, and we helped them out. They are our friends. They had an earthquake that was devastating, and we helped. And now they are a country aligned with the United States. Cuba is the next country, the next domino to fall. And Rubio just basically said, these are the reasons we're going to do what we're going to do. Right. If the State Department is saying Cuba is doing this, Cuba's doing that, Cuba's doing that, the natural next step would be to do the regime change that's necessary. There were reports a few months ago that Rubio was basically in control of Cuba. He was negotiating a deal. He was actually secretly in Cuba. I don't know how true that was. It could have been. But I don't want a deal with Cuba. I don't want that. I want the regime gone. Because what precedent does that set to have a regime that's antagonistic to the United States, has been since its inception in 1960 with Fidel Castro? What message does it send to the rest of, every antagonistic regime if we are just buddying with Cuba, making a deal? No, we have to embarrass the regime. We have to go in like Ronald Reagan. Was it Noriega? That one dictator, I think it was Panama or something, and just blast YMCA as we arrest the regime. We have to embarrass them. We have to put them in a Nike tracksuit after we send Delta Force, like some 20-year-old Gen Z boys, to pick them up in the middle of the night. That's what we have to do. It's just, it's necessary. You have to embarrass them, make them go, oh my gosh, I wish I wasn't a communist. I wish I was aligned with the United States. I wish I wasn't just an enemy of that country. I wish I was actually a friend of theirs. You have to set an example, If one kid's misbehaving, you have to make sure that you deliver consequences, right? So that the other kids know that that's wrong. You don't necessarily have to do anything outrageous. You just have to set down the law. You just have to lay it down. So it is amazing to see that. That's a great report. Again, I'll keep you guys updated with the situation in Cuba. Very much looking forward to it. I think it's incredibly dangerous news for, Democratic Socialists of America, because they are now on Rubio's radar and their connection to Cuba has just been exposed. I think that's huge. That's huge. Anyways, let's pray. Lord, I pray for Cuba. I pray for regime change. I pray for the people that they get their heart's desire in this instance. In Jesus' name, amen. And that is true, by the way. The Cuban people are waiting for
one of these days. I know. That's bad, see? That's good. That's good. Well, good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a good week. Before we get out of here, before our work period, we got a lot of work to do. But what I find very interesting is how the radical left feels they need to hide what their policies are. They soften the language. They invent nicer labels. They call themselves democratic socialists, almost as though they're ashamed to tell the American people what they actually believe. I mean, they should say it loud. They should say it proud. So let's call it what it is. It's communism. And I'm glad y'all are reporting on it. That is exactly what we need, because that is exactly who the left is. They don't need little nicknames like the Democratic Socialists of America and these acronyms. Just tell the American people what you believe in. Communism. And of course, communism arrives wearing a face. It never arrives wearing a face of who it really is, right? At first, it sounds compassionate. It promises fairness, security, a government powerful enough to solve every single problem and provide for every need. Then, little by little, the promises kind of go away. And what happens? those promises go away and it gives government more control. A shopkeeper is told that his business no longer belongs to him. A farmer is ordered to surrender the land that his family has farmed for decades. A father actually stops talking freely at his own dinner table because he's afraid of what his children might say in school the next day. And eventually, slowly, the country that promised everyone everything can no longer provide the basic needs. And just look at the images behind me. These people are not waiting in line for a luxury item. They're standing in the bread line in the Soviet Union. Men and women bundled against the cold, parents waiting for hours, a line stretching down the streets towards a store whose shelves may be eventually empty when they actually get there. Think about that for a second and just look at those images. Images reaching, imagine for 1 second, reaching the front of that line, finding nothing and returning home empty-handed to your family because you've now become dependent on the government, right? The radical left wants you to believe that communism has never really been tried. Well, it has. It's been tried again and again and again. And you know what? It's failed every single time. Communism tries to make you dependent on the government. And let me share with you one adage that I teach my children. I don't want my children to be dependent. I don't want my children to be dependent on anybody. I don't want my children to be dependent on their spouse. I don't want my children to be dependent on me. And I sure don't want my children to be dependent on the government. And that's what communism does. It makes you dependent. And think about it, not because the wrong people are in charge, not because communism just needed just a little more time. It failed because communism itself doesn't work. It wants you to be dependent. It takes ownership away from the people who produce and puts government officials in charge of deciding what will be made, how it will be made, and who will make it. You have no freedoms. You have no
It's not me. It's them TV. I don't know what happened to the sound. She's speaking the truth. They cut her off. No sound. That's crazy. Oh, no wonder.
kind of go away. And what happens? those promises go away and it gives government more control. A shopkeeper is told that his business no longer belongs to him. A farmer is ordered to surrender the land that his farm has, that his family has.
Apologize, my Bluetooth kicked in, so my bad on that.
Farmed for decades. A father actually stops talking freely at his own dinner table because he's afraid of what his children might say in school the next day. And eventually, slowly, the country that promised everyone everything can no longer provide the basic needs. And just the images behind me. These people are not waiting in line for a luxury item. They're standing in the bread line in the Soviet Union. Men and women bundled against the cold, parents waiting for hours, a line stretching down the streets towards a store whose shelves may be eventually empty when they actually get there. Think about that for a second and just look at those images. Images reaching, imagine for 1 second, reaching the front of that line, finding nothing and returning home empty-handed to your family because you've now become dependent on the government, right? The radical left wants you to believe that communism has never really been tried. Well, it has. It's been tried again and again and again. And you know what? It's failed every single time. Communism tries to make you dependent on the government. And let me share with you one adage that I teach my children. I don't want my children to be dependent. I don't want my children to be dependent on anybody. I don't want my children to be dependent on their spouse. I don't want my children to be dependent on me. And I sure don't want my children to be dependent on the government. And that's what communism does. It makes you dependent. And think about it, not because the wrong people are in charge, not because communism just needed just a little more time. It failed because communism itself doesn't work. It wants you to be dependent. It takes ownership away from the people who produce and puts government officials in charge of deciding what will be made, how it will be made, and who will make it. You have no freedoms. You have no choice. You are now dependent solely on the government. And the government will tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And scarcity is not some accidental side effect of the system. Scarcity is actually the result. The Soviet Union promised equality, then delivered breadlines. It promised security, then built a society of surveillance and fear. It promised liberation, then trapped millions of people behind an iron curtain. That's where that road to communism leads. Yet the radical left is selling the same lie in America today. They've polished their branding, right? They've prettied it up. They've packaged it for social media and marketed it to young Americans and college campuses all over the world. They've packaged it as compassion, and they've made promises that they can't keep. But a friendlier name does not change the ideology, and it certainly does not change the end game. This is no longer confined to the margins. Communism has taken root in our universities, our largest cities, and it has taken root in the Democratic Party. Every attack on private property, every demand for greater government control, and every lesson teaching young Americans to despise capitalism drives those roots deeper. That's why every single Democrat voted to raise your taxes. They want to take your hard-earned money away from you and make sure that that hard-earned money goes to help somebody else.
Yep.
Because somebody has to pay for everything that's free. Because last I checked, the farmers don't farm for free, the teachers don't teach for free, and grocery stores don't give away free food. Somebody actually has to pay for that. Just ask them who's paying. I'm going to tell you, it's the producers. Americans will never become a communist country. We can never let that happen. And who's standing in the way? House Republicans are ready to stand in the way. We will expose communism's record. It's not an abstract political debate, but a warning written across the faces of the people in this photograph. We need to remember history because we do not want to repeat it. People who were promised everything by their government left waiting in the cold, waiting for a loaf of bread. America must never become that country. But stopping communists requires more than trimming back its most radical proposals.
Can't let that happen, y'all.
We have to dig it out at its roots. And that's what we as Republicans will continue to do. Just look at the Democratic Party. They are divided right now. We are united. We believe in freedom. We believe in traditional American values. We believe in capitalism, and we believe in people. We believe people should, and will continue to control their own destiny, not the government. And we will dig it out by our roots. And the person who I want to introduce you to next is Nicole Meliatakis, who has quite an interesting story about communism. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I represent New York's 11th District. I'm the daughter of a Cuban refugee. My mother fled communist Cuba when Fidel Castro came in 1959. So I'm very familiar with what communism does. My mother fled the country, leaving her father behind. She came with her mother here, and the regime ended up stealing my family's home, their small business, which was a gas station that my grandfather had, and my mother never saw her father again. So communism destroys, it steals from the people, and as you've seen our Secretary of State point out, people end up living in squalor and lack the basic needs that human beings need, and the people that run the regime live as kings. That's the reality. It's about power. It's about consolidating power for a select few. And that is exactly what some of the people that are running for office here in the United States, sadly, are trying to do. We just saw a radical group of individuals win the Democrat primary in New York City. Some of these candidates support no jails, no cops, no borders. They even want to defund the military. You have across the river in New Jersey, Adam Hamaway, who was a character witness for the blind sheik who was convicted of conspiracy in the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. And then in my city of New York, as I mentioned, not just those who just won those primaries, we have Mayor Mondani, who pushed and is pushing an agenda of government-run supermarkets, abolishing private property rights, and seizing the means of production. That was his campaign platform. He has said those words. And that is exactly what they did in communist Cuba. Socialism, communism, I mean, in my view, and I think in reality, socialism is just communism light. It is a step, that's right, as my mother says, it is a step to full communism. If socialism succeeds, then you get communism. And what happens in that process? The government is stealing wealth from people, stealing property from people, and they are using that money to offer things, to redistribute things in a quest to consolidate that power. And as you see with some of the socialist policies that we've seen implemented in New York, costs rise, right? This is not, the mayor running on affordability is ludicrous when you think about what socialism actually does, because they steal your money and they spend it, and it leads to inflation, and we know what happened in Venezuela. packing the Supreme Court. How many times have we heard the Democrats here talk about packing the Supreme Court? Well, that's exactly what they did in Venezuela in 2004. They packed the Supreme Court from 20 to 32 justices, and then 40,000 cases were decided in the favor of Chavez and Maduro. Think about that. So I don't care what they call themselves, but when you're taking pages out of the playbook of Karl Marx, pushing for abolishing private property rights and seizing the means of production, or Hugo Chavez in packing the Supreme Court, that's what you're going to get. So they can call themselves Democrat socialists, but the reality is that the Communist Caucus, the Commie Caucus, is coming to Congress. And it's going to be a rude awakening if we don't all pay attention. And that includes the press. Think about what's happened in those countries where they've had socialism and communism. The press is the first one to go. When they finally consolidate that power, the media is the first one to go, and it is a state-run media. So it's incumbent upon all of us to get the truth out there about the threats that we are facing as a country with these radical people that want to bring this horrific ideology here.
That's it.
Well, very powerful words, Nicole. Look, the Bolshevik takeover of the Democrat Party is in full swing. And communism is on the ballot this November against freedom. Make no mistake about that. The lines have never been more clear in an election. Just look right now at the fight between Hakeem Jeffries and Bernie Sanders. They're in public war with each other right now, and Bernie Sanders is winning. Bernie's candidates are beating Hakeem's candidates in Democrat primaries. Now, in far left Democrat districts, those communist candidates are going to likely be elected. But in swing districts, it draws an incredibly sharp contrast between our incumbent Republicans who are working to make life more affordable for working families against these communists who want to literally defund the police. Some are running on platforms, as Lisa Nicole said, of defunding prisons, defunding the Department of War, taking away private property rights. This isn't a joke. This is something they actually believe in. And you're seeing it play out in cities like New York, but it's coming to a town near you. And it will absolutely be on the ballot this November. Because the American people do not want America to become a communist nation. But that means Americans have to participate this November to stop it from happening. And we're going to see more votes on the House floor. You know, what do they want to do? They want chaos. They want power is ultimately what they want. They can't articulate a real clear agenda for the American people because they've been fighting us on all the things that would actually work to lower costs, keeping taxes low, keeping regulations low, getting government off the backs of working families, producing more energy in America, which lowers costs. Every Democrat voted against that bill. So their votes have been very clear on what they want to do. But look at some of their other votes. Last week, we had a vote on the House floor that was brought forward not by leadership, but a vote that would have defunded America's support of Israel. And the Democrats were literally divided right down the middle. A majority of Democrats voted to defund Israel. All but one Republican voted to support Israel. But if you look at the vote, even their own leadership was split right down the middle. Half of their leadership voted to defund Israel, and half of their leadership didn't. They're a divided party right now, again, where the communist wing of the party is starting to win out on all of these votes. Look at some of these votes. Again, a majority of Democrats voted to block military aid to Israel. A majority of Democrats voted no on denouncing the anti-Semitic terrorist attacks in Boulder, Colorado. A majority of them voted against denouncing those attacks. A majority of Democrats voted no on expressing support for law enforcement. A majority. That is who the Democrat Party is today. That's what communism is. They can call themselves whatever they want. Look at their votes. Look at their platform. Look at their actions.
Look.
And then we're going to bring more bills. Again, we got a bill this week to just fund government, continuing resolution that Chairman Cole is bringing forward today to say, look, we don't want a government shutdown. We don't want the chaos that comes with it. Republicans are united, by the way, behind that. And what is Hakeem saying? He's voting to shut the government down today. Let's watch how all Democrats vote. But the American people are going to be watching that too, because they remember the long lines just a few months ago at every airport. Democrats will be voting today to have 4-hour lines at every airport when you're going and taking your summer vacation this month for a hardworking family. Democrats will be voting today to take away paychecks from our men and women in uniform. That's what they'll be voting on today. Tomorrow, we're bringing up a bill to ban stock trading by members of Congress, something people have been calling for years. We're bringing that bill to the floor. Chairman Stiles' committee worked really hard to get a bill brought forward. Now Democrats are talking about voting against that. Bringing the NDAA. Let's see how that vote goes to just provide the basic layout for how our national defense should be prioritized. These are basic functions of government, basic responsibilities of reforming government. Bringing the Save America Act. Again, what is the Save America Act? Show and picture ID to vote. Not a complicated subject. Again, anybody that gets on an airplane has to show a picture ID to vote. Nowadays, if you want to go to Olive Garden and get unlimited pasta, you got to show a picture ID. This isn't complicated stuff, yet every Democrat is against these basic things. Why? The only reason you can be against that is if you want voter fraud. It's the only explanation, and they know that. American people get it. We've all seen polling. It crosses every spectrum. Black, white, Republican, Democrat. Everybody says, of course, ensure the integrity of the vote. One person, one vote. So that, and by the way, in states, and you saw this yesterday in Rules Committee, Chairman Stiles did a really good job of explaining it. In the states where they put stronger voter integrity in place, you actually have higher voter participation because voters actually trust the process better. And so we're going to have these votes this week. Before we leave for everybody to go back to their districts and work, we're going to have a lot to talk about during this break, because we're going to be talking about the contrast on the ballot this November between communism and freedom. And the American people will absolutely choose freedom and keep this Republican House majority and keep our Speaker, Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Leader, and good morning, everybody. We have a lot on our plate this week. It's going to be a very important week for the country and for House Republicans. I spent a lot of time on the road when we're not in session. I'm out campaigning in the swing districts and with our candidates and our incumbents all across the country. The last 2 weeks, I've been from California to New York, Iowa, Nebraska, many points in between. And everywhere we go, the American people are seeing and understanding, and they're articulated in their own way, the stark contrast between the two sides. As we say all the time, this is not your father's Democratic Party. That the chasm between the two sides and their visions for America and what we believe, our principles, our priorities, our platforms, has never been more divergent than it is right now. As I've said here many times, and I say across the country, a few decades ago, Republicans and Democrats in Congress are arguing over marginal tax rates and shades of regulation. Now we are quite literally in a contest to determine whether we're going to maintain our status as the world's great superpower, the greatest nation in the history of the world, as a constitutional republic, or we're going to tear that down to the foundation like the communist Democrats want to do and go down this dark road of Marxism. Not on our watch. We're not going to do that. And I am very confident. In fact, I'm very enthusiastic about the upcoming midterm election because I believe that people are beginning to see this. And it is going to motivate voter turnout for true Americans who love their country and want to keep it. We're in the process of making it better every single day. And you're going to see that on display this week on the floor. We've said this is a contrast. We had been saying for months, you've heard me say, a contrast between common sense and crazy in the midterm. And now it's common sense versus communism. And this is real. So this week on the floor, let me talk to you about a few things that we're going to have. It's been mentioned by the leader. This week, House Republicans are going to take an important step to to restore Americans' faith and trust in Congress and in American elections with the Stop Insider Trading Act. As Leader Scalise noted, this is something the American people have been very interested in for a long, long time. We have finally cobbled together what we believe is the vote coalition to make that happen. I want to commend the good work of the House Administration Committee and Chairman Brian Stile for their quarterbacking of this collaborative effort. And they've drafted a bill that I think is really, really well done. Too often, Americans struggling to make ends meet have watched as lawmakers have entered office to leave as multimillionaires. There's a handful of glaring examples. A couple of those people are still serving, notably on the Democrat side. The Stop Insider Trading Act does exactly what it says. It bans members of Congress from purchasing individual stocks from publicly traded companies, and it helps prevent public officials from profiting from inside information. It's a very logical thing to do. The bill also includes a very common sense and popular provision to ensure that voters must show a valid ID when they go to the polls to vote. Virtually all Republicans support that common sense measure, and over 70% of Democrats do, as acknowledged most recently by Chuck Schumer himself. And yet, watch, I bet you, not a single Democrat in the House or Senate will support these measures. Democrats only talk about corruption. Republicans are actually delivering real solutions to actually restore the public's faith in our institutions, because we believe in this country. We believe in our matchless Constitution that is the envy of everybody around the world. And we believe on the 250th anniversary now is a very important time to stand on that. Later today, House Republicans are going to move closer to responsibly funding the government as well. We're going to pass a totally clean, very simple continuing resolution that will fund the government through November. The CR is as clean as they come. There are no poison pills. There's no hidden maneuvers. There's nothing other than a simple extension of current funding levels. Now, this is going to be one to watch. Unfortunately, given that Democrats have already forced the two longest government shutdowns in American history in this Congress, one of them for 78 days, they've already demonstrated they don't care what kind of pain they inflict on the American people. They do this to try to score political points. I think they're making the wrong calculation here. Republicans are under no illusions about Democrats' intentions ahead of a very consequential midterm election. Today's Democrat Party, I think they have a very false impression. They think that they can score political points by trying to inflict pain. It's not going to work. They've shown there's nothing they love more than a government shutdown, as tens of millions of Americans head to the polls in November. But this clean CR is an opportunity for both sides. So they have an opportunity to demonstrate they're committed to responsibly funding the government through November. And again, I bet you they don't help us on it. If the Democrats can't support this basic principle, then they are alone are going to own the chaos that ensues if the government shuts down after September 30th. On reconciliation this week, of course, we're going to move the ball forward on Reconciliation 3.0. We pass our budget resolution. That's what we'll do, send it to the Senate. As a reminder, this legislative vehicle is our best shot at accomplishing two key objectives of the people of this country. And these are very popular and important and necessary objectives. Number one, secure American elections by passing the Save America Act into law. As much of that as possible. That's the objective. Number two, protect and strengthen our homeland. How do we do that? We'll be providing supplemental funding in line with the administration's request to support our national defense and our farmers. Why is this necessary? Because Democrats have yet again refused to work with Republicans on basic election integrity and strengthening our nation's defense. As always, Republicans support our troops, our farmers, and election integrity, and we will demonstrate that again this week. Another big thing on the floor, as you know, is the NDAA, National Defense. Now, there was a time, all you remember, not too long ago, that funding for our national defense was a bipartisan exercise, because at the end of the day, everybody put the weapons down, metaphorical weapons, political weapons, and said, gee, both parties have to acknowledge the necessity of maintaining our defense and supporting our troops. And surely that's the last thing we can agree upon, everybody would say. For 65 consecutive years, Congress has done exactly that, enacted the National Defense Authorization Act without fail. I am sad to tell you that is no longer the case, because the Communist Caucus, the Democrats now, have decided that they're not into that anymore. Republicans will once again be the only adults in the room as we vote to authorize this critically important funding, just as we have done under previous Democrat administrations for more than a century. Why? Because Republicans understand the priorities of the country, and even when we don't get our greatest preferences, we're still willing to do the right thing and support those who put on the uniform. But Democrats aren't there anymore. One final point, this week will prove beyond dispute Democrats' reflexive obstruction. That's what they do now. It's obstruction for the sake of obstruction. It is driven by Trump derangement syndrome and other maladies that they have. It's shocking to say, but today's Democrats would rather endanger our national security. They'd rather threaten the livelihoods of hardworking Americans. They'd rather punish their own constituents than work with Republicans to advance any meaningful policy under this administration. But here's the good news. Republicans refuse to allow the Democrats to railroad the legislative process with their relentless and childish obstruction tactics. No matter how hard they dig in their heels, we're going to work 10 times harder. We're going to deliver for the American people. We're going to make our country safer and more affordable for millions of working families. We've demonstrated that over and over. We'll continue to do it this week and in the days ahead. And that is why we're going to win decisively in the midterms. This is not a game. We're not going to turn this country into a communist experiment. We're going to maintain the greatest country in the history of the world. Take a few questions.
Mr. Speaker,
Go ahead.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Eric Garcia, Independent. These past 2 weeks, Democrats ditched Grand Platinum from their ballot after sexual assault allegations. 2 members of your conference, Max Miller and Ford Mills, faced domestic violence allegations. Why would you Republicans keep them in the conference, whereas Democrats are dropping somebody accused of criminally because of sexual harassment?
Well, the key word there is allegation. We have a process here. The House Ethics Committee works on those things. If allegations are made, they work through a process. So I'm not in the business of commenting on investigations as they're in process, and we'll see how that shakes out. That's how this always works. And by the way, it's done for R's and D's on both sides of the aisle. Yes, ma'am. Second row. Yes, sir.
You repeatedly said that you trust the administration to handle the war with Iran. We're now 5 months in, and the U.S. death toll has surpassed the withdrawal of Afghanistan. Given that, at what point are you willing to put an AUMF on the floor or go for a War Powers Act resolution to try and rein this in?
The administration is working very hard. The commander-in-chief and the whole Department of War are working very hard to bring this to a resolution. There's a lot of discussions about how that will be done. We're all closely watching those developments, of course. I don't think an AUMF is in order right now. I think we need to bring this to a resolution. Look, I think it's important for all of our international partners, this is my personal view, to have a role in this. I mean, we've got all of our allied nations through NATO. We've got the Arab countries over there, the Gulf states that are in closest proximity to Iran. Iran is now fired on all of its neighbors, and they're turning everybody in the world into an enemy. And I think this is an important moment of history for all of the world community to decide how they want to handle this. It shouldn't just be America's obligation. My view is that everybody needs to play a role. So we'll see how that develops. I think we have to allow the space to do that. And I know that this administration is working around the clock to resolve that in a way so that we don't suffer any more troop losses. This is a great tragedy. It shouldn't happen. But it is a very important objective that I believe we've achieved to ensure that the largest sponsor of state of terrorism does not have a nuclear weapon. That would be a disaster for everybody, and everybody around the world understands that. Now we got to wrap it up. Yes, ma'am. Fourth row back here. Did you raise your hand? Yes, ma'am.
There's some of the members of the put issues with the state act being rolled into the stock act. I was wondering how you're going to deal with that. Do you think that might prevent some of the members from voting the measures?
No, we had a good discussion in the House Republican Conference. It's not the full SAVE Act on the stock trading. It's just voter ID, which, again, it's more than a 90% public opinion polling issue, as is stock trading ban in the House. So you're talking about, 90-10 public, it's probably in excess of 9 out of 10 Americans support both of those measures. Everybody's hard pressed to vote against that. I don't think any Republicans will. I think a lot of Democrats will. It'll be a vote that you should closely watch, and that everybody's constituents should take heed to. Yes, ma'am. Third row. Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe it would be acceptable in any situation. You have a role where you have members of Congress and their subordinates and staff members. I think it's inappropriate, as it would be in any workplace, and most companies have that. We should.
Once we get all these illegals, these immigrants out, things can get lower. We got all these immigrants in here. And they are not helping us out at all. They are leeching. That's crazy. What, Obama deported 3 million? Trump, what, 1 million? He deported? More people died under ICE when it came to Obama than it did with Trump. But nobody want to do no research on that. They hear the bad thing and stick with it. So they're saying, okay, if this is bad over here, where's it good at? There's always something on the opposite side. Everybody wants to go on the bad side. Like, never look for the good. That's crazy.
And the reason for that is traffic lights, well, cutting bus service to make it faster. But they won't be free buses, oh no, because these are going to be funded with an army of AI cameras to find drivers with the help of Big Brother. And while the improvements from all this are years away in the future, those taxation cameras are here right now.
Blink and you might miss them. On the windshields of hundreds of MTA buses, mounted cameras are now searching for vehicles blocking the bus lane. The cameras are powered by artificial intelligence, but driver George Hahn says the AI system isn't smart enough.
Mayor Mamdani, Governor Hochul, and MTA Chair Janno Lieber announcing a plan to improve bus service. They identified 50 corridors for improvements, including 5 rapid transit routes that will save 6 minutes.
Hahn says last month he got 3 violations on the same day for blocking bus lanes, but in each case, the videos captured by the bus cameras themselves show he was legally parked.
If you make the bus 3 minutes fast, then you got to walk 5 minutes more to the bus. Your trip takes longer.
Alan Rosen is a former transit bus planner. He wants to see better management of the routes.
Change the routes to fill service gaps. They need to expand service rather than the cuts they're proposing in the redesign.
My commitment is to make...
Thank you for the super chat, Doris. Thank you. Was that Uncle Flo? Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate it.
Fast and free today. We stand together on how we deliver the facts.
So oddly, all this new stuff is going to cost $800 million, but that's exactly what the city loses every year to people who steal from the bus by riding it for free, which reveals that these communists, they have the math for their free buses, which would be a disaster, but they're wasting so much money, they can't even deliver on that. And the reason for that is, you see, the communists, they love big promises like free food and free buses and free apartments, but they love grand visual accomplishments even more, which is why they need to renovate bus stations for just shy of $1 billion, which will give them something shiny to point at, which proves in their minds that they've accomplished something. But this plan's got a bunch of problems. You see, it's going to eliminate the bus stations they decide not to renovate, and it's going to do this while punishing every car on the road with ticketing cameras, just so criminals and thugs can keep stealing from the city, revealing that the thought of using the money generated by our failing public transit networks to fix those failing public transit networks isn't on the table, which means the mayor, in a way, kept his promise. If you're a criminal, you're going to get to ride the bus for free. You always have. But if you're the law-abiding, nope. But it gets even worse because this is happening 2 years after the city rolled out another set of AI cameras to tax you for driving on the road. Oh, yes. And now we've got the AI cameras on the buses to give you tickets if you're on the wrong part of the road you just paid to drive on. But that's not all, because while they're eliminating the bus stations they don't plan to renovate, some people's commutes are going to get longer, because the only way the buses get faster is if they make less stops. Yet this time savings gimmick is meant to justify the spending of almost $1 billion. But that brings us to the real reason, this new bus plan for fast buses, which may be free later at some point when we don't know. This is not a solution. In fact, it's a handout to criminals at all levels, not just the criminals on the bus, but those who've been well connected enough to get to renovate them and fix them up. None of this nonsense. And this showboating addresses the reasons people wanted buses to be free in the first place. First of all, they're dangerous and unreliable. Sometimes you wait forever just to get on a bus that never shows up, and when it does, who's on it? The wrong people who want to commit crime. But this is all an excuse to turn every single bus on the road into a money-generating cash register that roams the streets looking for someone to punish, which isn't going to speed up traffic. After all, the cameras we already have haven't done that. And the most ironic thing about all this is if you want to ride the bus today and you want to pay for it, it actually costs more than it did before the mayor got into office.
Wow. This is interesting. And ever since Mondami became the mayor, MTA cops have been hammering fare evaders. Yep. So this is what's been happening. I've been seeing this. MTA cops are looking for fare evaders, but I thought the buses were supposed to be for free.
Oh, I guess not. I guess they're not.
I don't think buses are going to be free anytime soon.
They got a ticket operation.
Is trying to make as much money right now on fare evasion.
Right.
So it is what it is.
And they're doing it while blaming all of this on mayors that showed up before. Oh, it's not Mamdani's fault they're ticketing people. It's not his fault he told the few police that haven't quit the force yet that they need to go over to the buses and start writing people tickets, which is the opposite of free. But the truth is, this proves the socialism we already have has already run out of everyone's money, so they need more of it fast, which explains why we've got this armada of cameras that are coming to even more buses. Oh yeah, these things are gonna roam the streets, dishing out fines. If you're on the street, these things are looking for you, which means this is communism at its finest. Redistribution from those who have something to those who are supposed to get everything for free. And our leaders aren't exactly hiding it. Watch.
By 2030, B41 bus riders will see these bus boarding islands along the length of Flatbush Avenue, the first of 5 rapid bus transit routes where buses are physically separated from cars and just one part of the bus action plan. It aims to improve speeds by 20%, improve the overall customer experience, increase bus lane enforcement, and expand access to transit.
In New York City, time is money. And we are going to give New Yorkers some of that time back. 6 minutes.
Unless those New Yorkers happen to be driving a car. You see, this belief that time is money and it's very important and we need to give it back to you during an affordability crisis so you can get to work or go about your day or do whatever, that all flies out the window if you want to take matters into your own hands with a car. You see, they don't want you to have personal transportation. They do not like that. The communists want everybody riding the bus, which is why if you're in a car, things have just gotten progressively worse for you over the years. They've deleted roads, they've made them smaller, they've put these ludicrous bike lanes all over the place, they've created traffic congestion, and now they're taxing everybody for being in a car, and now they want you to get on a bus, which could be dangerous, which may never even show up, and they're telling you you're going to get 6 minutes back. But where did they get this 6 minutes number? Is it even a real number? Is it something people will actually experience, or is this part of the scam? Well, this article that talks about the AI cameras has something to say about that, and it says the 6 minute promise falls apart the moment you look at how far most people ride the bus. They're saying that bus lanes will save you up to 6 minutes. That means if you travel the entire bus route, which is 8 miles, which nobody does, you save 6 minutes. The average trip is 2.3 miles, so most people aren't going to save any time at all, especially if the bus is delayed, if it doesn't show up, if they ran out of money and they have to run less buses, if the person doesn't come to work who's supposed to drive the bus. I mean, all of these things impact the service that you're going to get. And the crazy thing is, this savings only happens because they're eliminating the number of stops the bus actually makes. So if the bus stops less frequently, yeah, it'll get a few minutes back. But what about the people who took those stops?
And automated cameras that ticket drivers in bus lanes.
If you make the bus 3 minutes faster and you got to walk 5 minutes more to the bus, your trip takes longer.
Alan Rosen is a former transit bus planner. He wants to see better management of the routes.
Change the routes to fill service gaps. They need to expand service rather than the cuts they're proposing in the redesign.
Oh, cuts.
Other promises: install 300 new bus shelters by
new bus shelters. Cuts. service disruptions. None of this is about improving people's lives at all. If the bus stops less frequently and you are elderly or challenged in a mobility sense, you getting on the bus, that could take a lot longer. That could make your life much harder, much less affordable. But that's not what this is about at all. This is about statistics and accomplishments that the communists can point to and say, see, I got everyone else's money and I spent it on that thing right there.
Of the least when it comes to our policy conversations.
Back along Northern Boulevard, Mary has time to talk. We checked the app, and the bus was 10 minutes and 30 minutes away.
Wow.
I've been running this bus for over 3-4 years now, and it's always been an issue. They're very delayed.
Describe how long you usually wait.
Sometimes 15.
City Hall says the new initiative, with cooperation from the MTA and state, creates 50 priority corridors.
Right. So because the buses are poorly run, people are waiting half an hour in some cases for the next bus if they miss a bus. People are sitting at these stations all day, and we're supposed to think that the same people who are running the buses and are mismanaging them are going to get a boatload of other people's money, redo all the roads, tear everything up, create congestion nightmares on the roads while they build these bus corridors, and then things are going to magically improve. I mean, that is the dumbest thing you could possibly think, that because the same people that run the buses also run the subway, and they keep promising us with the subway every year, oh, we're going to get service, it's going to be faster, we're going to do signal improvements, we're going to speed things up, we're going to modernize. That never happens. Every single promise that is made with public transit as the reason for that promise, it's all a scam, it's all a grift, it never works, and it's the commuters that pay the price. Increased enforcement, people stealing to get on these buses, stealing to get on the subway, committing crime while they're down there, making it dangerous for everybody. If they would just jail the fare evaders, they wouldn't have to have an army of police out in front of these buses, ticketing people, checking IDs, slowing everything down. That'll get you back 6 minutes. Put the criminals in jail. Then we don't have to do anything. And deep down, every single rider in this city knows exactly what's going to happen next.
New Yorkers, some of that time back. 6 minutes to be precise.
There will be 50 bus priority corridors, more signals that allow buses to jump ahead of other traffic, and more automated camera and human enforcement to keep bus lanes clear. Riders waiting for a very slow B41 were hopeful the plan can deliver.
I hope so. I'm someone that's like, we'll have to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, because the same people are still going to drive the buses, are still going to run the buses, are still going to manage the routes. The city that runs the subways and the buses, they get $21 billion a year to do it, and it's already this bad. What are they going to do with a little extra money from some AI ticketing cameras? The amount that they're going to get for these new projects is inconsequential, but they want to redesign everything so that they can, again, point at it and say, look, I did that. That's me. I did that right there. I delivered. I made a promise. I kept it, even though nothing changed. All of it is being wasted, which shows that fraud, it's not just the people that are stealing from the bus and the subway. It's the people in the government that are lying about what they're actually going to accomplish, where they're not going to accomplish anything. But they're telling us this time, it's different. Here's why.
The plan sets clear timeframes to accomplish goals not just on speed, but installing 300 bus shelters and universal bus stop seating by 2035. The MTA already planned to order 2,500 new buses.
We're not going to get off the bus. You're going to want to go to the next stop. It's going to be so great.
Officials say, yes, there have been other plans, but this one is different.
Accountability. We're putting out a report today that has specific goals and...
So this is the chairman of the MTA, and he's been running this agency for several years, and now there's going to be accountability. An agency that gets $21 billion a year is now finally going to be accountable for where this money gets spent, because we didn't have that in the past, which is how we got here, but going forward, everything's going to be just fine. I mean, are we really supposed to believe this? The system, its feature is that it wastes everyone's money. Its feature is that it is a perpetual excuse for why more of everyone's money needs to be taken away from them. That's how it's been for decades. There's no plan to change any of that. And every single year, the politicians and the bureaucrats, they get out there and they pump their chests about how they're delivering for the people, yet nothing changes. People are waiting at the bus. The subway's rotting and falling apart. And now the communists are going to come in and hold themselves accountable. Think about that for a second. They're going to take everyone's money, and they've got their own time frame for how they promise they're going to spend it, and they're going to hold themselves accountable for that. Do you believe that? Communist accountability, first time in world history here, folks.
How are we going to address the choke points on a daily basis that develop? That level of accountability and responsiveness is not always observed in government.
The plan actually comes with resources and the targets to deliver on it. DOT has a historic budget to do bus improvements. Over $900 million of capital and expense funding over the next 5 years.
But there are many who wonder, what about the free buses?
Oh, yeah, the free buses. But you see, before we get to that, understand that everything you just heard is what they say about public transit in New York every single year. We've got a historic budget. It's even bigger than last year. We're going to accomplish so much more. A bright future of amazing world-class public transit is just around the corner for everybody who lives in New York, except it's not. Except everybody knows that's a lie. Except everybody knows the budget grows every single year and things down in the subway or on the bus just get worse. But that's why people want the buses to be free. You see, they've created a system that's so bad, people are begging for communism to fix it because they don't see any reason to pay for it. The only thing they don't understand is that once these buses are free, there's not going to be any bus because the money's going to run out for the free buses because they have to steal it from people. And once it's gone, there's not going to be any money to put a driver on that bus, to repair that bus, to buy the new bus when the old bus breaks down. And then, these buses are all electric. That's what we find out now. They're going to buy 2,500 electric buses. Good luck turning your AC on in the summer in New York if they got 2,500 electric buses draining the power grid.
Who wonder, what about the free buses? The mayor says it will come.
I've been very clear with the voters that my commitment is to make buses fast and free. Today, we stand together on how we deliver the fast.
Of course, the drive.
Oh, so we're going to make them fast today, and everyone's going to pay more money for them to be fast today, and we'll get around to making them free. We're committed to that lofty expectation, that campaign promise, but in order to make them free, we got to make them fast. In order to make them fast, we need more of everyone else's money. Don't you see how convenient this is? Meanwhile, nobody wants to tackle the real reason bus service in New York is such a disaster. They've destroyed the roads in this city. They've created so much traffic congestion by taking roads that used to have 5 lanes and knocking them down to 2 lanes, plus a bus lane, plus a bike lane, plus parking, plus a green space. The traffic can't even get down the street. So if you're going to destroy the infrastructure that the bus drives on, don't be shocked when it slows down and when it stops working and when it becomes repulsive and useless and totally unpredictable. You know, if you've got skinny little roads, even a minor traffic jam miles away from where the bus stop is, that could slow down everyone's commute for the entire morning. It's like people redesigned everything because what their goal was a few years ago, if you remember, was to get the taxation cameras for the cars, this congestion pricing. They wanted that so bad. So what did they have to do? They needed statistics that proved that they needed AI cameras to tax every single car on the road. So they redesigned all the roads. They created massive traffic congestion, and they had their statistics, and they rolled out their cameras, and they put them in place, and it survived the Trump administration's threats to shut it all down. And there it is. And they said that those cameras were going to fix public transit in New York. They said that once those cameras were up and every car on the road got taxed, we were going to have amazing public transit. We were going to have buses that were great, a subway that was great, and those were all the promises everybody in New York just heard related to public transit. But where are they? Why is no one out there bragging about the congestion pricing? You know why? Because it's delivering a whole bunch of money, and that money is going right out the window. They need more of it. But there's actually a way the city could fix its entire transportation problem overnight if it wanted to. Now, I'm against this idea of universal public transit for obvious reasons because it's a big scam, but I'm not against the idea of mass transit transit. In fact, over by the Intrepid Museum, where this massive homeless encampment is growing, you have the solution to New York City's transportation problem, because this is where they keep all of the buses that go into the bus terminal and bring people across the country. Well, when they're not in use, they park them on the streets over here. So you have an army of buses that aren't being used for anything. And if people are waiting for the bus and the next bus is a half an hour away, well, you could drastically speed that up if you would let some of these buses also be driven in the bus lanes. Like, what if a coach bus or a Greyhound bus could be driven and operated on the public bus lanes and be used to pick people up? What if they could sell tickets and seats on their own buses? That would work. That would speed up transportation, and the buses already exist. But you see, the problem with that is then you would have private industry competing with the communists, and we all know who's going to win that battle. Everyone's going to love the private buses. No one's going to be getting up.
Actually, what qualifications do you have to serve in the U.S. Senate?
Oh, I ran for office several times. Didn't win, but I did run. And then I'm a songwriter, and then I write my own books. And then I suppose my transparency, I wouldn't lie to the people, and I wouldn't deceive the people like we're being deceived right now. Like, we get lied to. Smoke and mirrors, like what's going on with ICE, pretending like these victims did something wrong. Like, that's unacceptable. And I suppose the biggest thing is, like, I'm just an angry citizen now, and if I got elected, I'd be an angry senator, and I think that would probably be their worst nightmare.
So we got to provide a very unfortunate update for trans Democrat Senate candidate Ashley Webb, who has become a sensation on the internet. Ashley Webb put forth a very stunning and brave debate performance as he told us why he should be the candidate for Senate out in Maine, right? The Democrat primary, which is a full-blown clown show due to the fact that Graham Plattner, an alleged rapist, had to drop out. So now they're trying to decide who should replace him. And again, this is up to the Democrat Party, not the voters. And Ashley Webb told us that he would never deceive anybody, right? Which is a little confusing because this person is trans, okay? A biological man who claims to be a woman, which by definition is deception. But in an extended interview, Ashley Webb is telling us that, no, he's actually intersex, right? Intersex. And apparently he gets period symptoms like a real woman, right? Allegedly. Okay, which is what this individual is going to basically claim in this extended interview here.
You have mentioned you're intersex. How did that end up coming about? How did you find all this out?
Through medical records that don't add up. And my birth records.
Okay, wait, birth records?
Yeah.
Can you explain that further? I don't want to.
So, when I was born, the hospital admin for the medical records signed off on the birth record, and they filed it pretty certain, a little bit over 30 days past my birth.
Oh, wow.
And then what they told my mother was they supposedly ran out of birth forms. Now, when I reached out to the town clerk of where I was born, specifically asked them, how many other birth certificates did this admin sign? Turns out mine was the only one.
Oh, okay. Well, what was the, why was there an issue? What happened? I guess I'm unsure what happened.
That's the issue that I'm running into is because, well, unfortunately, they only retained birth records for 20 years, and mine got destroyed. So now I'm not going to get an answer as to why they did that. But and the only reason why I started digging into it was because of I had a blood test drawn, and my estrogen was like 285 pg/ml, and that's with no hormones, just my own production.
Okay, that's significant. Okay. So how did you end up going to get like an estrogen level taken?
Well, I was experiencing hot flashes, and I asked the doctor to run an estrogen test, and I guess they don't do that for.
You're saying so the idea being that you had ovaries, but or you have ovaries, I suppose that were generating estrogen, but but not necessarily ovulating.
Oh, I'm
Is what you're saying?
I don't know about the ovulation. Because I do get symptoms too that, well, I was until I went on the estrogen patch, which went away completely.
Okay.
I would feel really good on like the 15th day of every cycle. And it was a 29-day cycle that I was experiencing.
I mean, this sounds pretty...
What the?
Sounds pretty...
ridiculous. Sounds pretty ridiculous. That's what it sounds like, bro. This is Democrat Party, guys. Again, I just want people to understand. These are the type of individuals that Democrats are appealing to, right? These are the type of individuals that Democrats think should vote, right? No, not only should they vote, they should be running for office. This is the modern day Democrat Party. Don't let them fool you.
Yeah, cycly there. So
and
let me read you.
I was gonna
go ahead.
And during that time, like I also leak like a mucus, which they can't really explain.
Oh, interesting.
What the?
Interesting. You want to call yourself transgender despite not necessarily knowing what all parts are inside?
Well, I mean, the doctors gave me the label and I want to keep it because
I see.
Even if I'm intersex, like the intersex community pretty much tossed me out and didn't want to talk to me.
Oh. Any story there you want to finish?
I had ovaries and possibly uterus. And I was asking them, like, I have these CAT scans. Can you take a look? And tell me what you think. And I guess it annoyed them, so they kicked me out.
Oh. Okay, well, I mean, good welcoming community. Thanks.
Exactly. The trans community welcomed me without any issues.
Yeah. All right, so you call yourself transgender.
Wow. Wow. Guys.
Wow.
Guys, I'm speechless. I honestly don't know what to say. You think that you've seen it all, and I literally cover lunacy for a living, right? This is my job, right? And, again, I haven't seen this, right? Haven't seen this, okay? This is a whole nother level. So, unfortunately, for Ashley Moody, okay, it is very, very, very likely that he is not going to be the candidate. Right, because Democrats apparently have already decided that it is going to be Troy Jackson who is going to replace Graham Plattner in Maine Senate race. Now, again, this guy is essentially a cardboard cutout of Graham Plattner.
Here we go. We're going to do something to get rid of ICE. We're going to do something to get rid of the people that support them because we no world should we have to live in where you get the more and go to work and you're murdered.
Let me ask you, because you campaigned with Graham Plattner during your bid for governor, even as all of these other controversies surfaced, old Reddit posts downplaying sexual assault in the military, since covered up tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol. He denied knowing what it meant, as well as allegations from past girlfriends about physically aggressive behavior. He denied those. But why were none of those controversies a breaking point for you?
I think the old Reddit post, I think even the tattoo, there were plausible things that, people can change and things like that.
That state. So Jackson jumped into the race after primary winner Graham Plattner was forced to drop out, and now he looks set to take on Senator Susan Collins.
We're not from the left, we're not from the right, we're from the bottom and we're rising. And I know what happens when working people decide that they've had enough.
Brian Yanez has more on Jackson and the race to replace Plattner. How's it going, Brian?
Dana, good morning. Well, Troy Jackson effectively becomes the Democratic Senate nominee in Maine days before the Democratic Party holds its nominating convention to pick its candidate this Saturday. Here's how we already know the outcome. Democrats spent the weekend electing 500 county delegates who will pick Graham Plattner as replacement at the convention. Those delegates ran publicly declaring who they will support, while more than 450 of the 500 winning delegates said they would back Jackson. Even though these delegates can ultimately vote for anyone at the convention, Jackson is now the likely nominee. So over the last 24 hours, Jackson's 4 main competitors have dropped out of the race, clearing the way for him to formally win the nomination on Saturday. He'd replace Plattner, who won the Democratic primary.
Yeah, Saturday is when the Democratic Party will gather. They will convene and vote formally to figure out who will be the next nominee to replace Graham Plattner after he, withdrew from the race amid many different controversies there. So over the weekend, we saw many major candidates drop out, and the party seems to be coalescing around Troy Jackson. He is the former Senate president. He is a logger. He's a progressive. He was somebody who was endorsed by Bernie Sanders in the gubernatorial primary that he did not win. And so, all signs point to him being the next nominee. I think what remains to be seen is whether or not he can generate the same amount of excitement and enthusiasm for Democrats in Maine that Graham Plattner definitely did have. He mobilized a lot of voters there. And you have to remember that this is a must-win race for Democrats if they want to take control of the Senate. And Susan Collins is a Republican who has won really difficult races before.
I can answer that question. No, right? No. I do not think this guy is going to be able to generate enough excitement in order to beat Susan Collins, even though it seems as if progressives have a hard-on for hick progressives, right? Hick socialists, hick communists that they think can win over Trump supporters, right? You guys notice the pattern here, right? If you are a white, hick-looking, redneck-looking guy and you claim to be a communist, progressives love you, right? They automatically want to rally around you, and you're like the next best thing, right? You're amazing. They will tolerate anything, right? Including a Nazi tattoo, rape allegations, racist jokes, you name it, right? Whatever. They will tolerate it. Again, if you look like you can win over Trump supporters with your looks, and you also are a communist, that is, I think, is a great example of how progressives and socialists and communists think that people are dumb, right? They really do believe that, hey, we can put somebody out there that aligns with your identity, right? As a white man, okay? And you're going to vote for them, right? Even if they're communists. It's like, nah, I don't think that people are that dumb, okay? And the proof is in the pudding, because apparently you already have voters who are revolting against Troy Jackson, saying that, no, this guy's fake. He's not a real progressive. He is phony.
Troy Jackson is not progressive. He voted against so many bad things like gay marriage, abortion. He did that, and now wants to say he's progressive. If they put up Troy Jackson, if they put up Shanna Bellows, I'm voting for Susan Collins. And I hate to say that as an independent, but Troy Jackson and Shanna Bellows aren't going to be able to do anything in that federal government.
I know that gentleman says he's an independent, but he's expressing progressive values and beliefs there. So respond to him.
Well, I mean, honestly, he is accurate. I voted against those things over 15 years ago. Since then, I've found out, I've understood. I mean, I've always been someone that believed that healthcare is a human right. And it became clear to me after some time that abortion, reproductive rights access is a human right. It's healthcare. It's people that, deserve to have that. And when it dawned on me, I became a real advocate for that. I mean, over the last 10 years, I've had 100% voting record for Planned Parenthood. I've sponsored or co-sponsored some of the most progressive abortion access in the entire country and fought vehemently for it. And I make no bones about a bad vote years ago coming out of a rural area, a very Catholic area. People are going to have all kinds of thoughts about these things, but I have a 20-year record of votes like that, but a whole bunch of votes that, people like in the DSA think that I'm very progressive. In the end, I'm fighting for people. I'm fighting for people across Maine. You can call them whatever votes you want, but in the end, I think they're the things that actually drive people make people's lives better. And it's part of the frustration that people in Maine have right now of a government that's not working for them. And I feel like that too. I've been Senate president for the last 6 years, the second highest ranking official in Maine, and I'm frustrated that government does not work the way it should. And that's what this race is about, is making sure that we have a government that fights for Mainers.
You do have a 100% rating from Planned Parenthood in New England.
Yeah, see, now you heard that, okay? As I stated before Graham Plattner dropped out, I said it's damn if you do, damn if you don't. If he drops out, they're cooked. Okay, the reason why they're cooked is because of the fact that there's some people who are going to say, no, I don't support his replacement for X, Y, and Z reason. If he stays in, then you're going to have people who are not going to support Graham Plattner because he is an alleged rapist, right? That's the reality of the situation that Democrats are in, okay? So they essentially forced Graham Plattner out. They said, hey, we're not going to spend money on your race. Now they're going to throw a whole bunch of money, probably millions, and they're going to set it on fire in Maine behind this guy who has the charisma of a cardboard box, right? They're going to throw a bunch of money behind him, and he's likely going to lose, okay? Because he doesn't really have the progressive credentials, right, that, you know, is required, okay, considering the fact that a long time ago, he basically used...
Democrats only fight for their own agenda, not for the voter. Right. Democrat Party keep forgetting that they work for us, we the people. Well, for those who voted for the Democrats. Those who voters. Democrat Party work for us, y'all. The government works for us.
To be a Republican, and you don't just all of a sudden go from Republican sane person to far left commie lunatic, right? It's a grift. Obviously he found a new grift, okay, and people can see through that, right? They can see through that. So again, this guy is not able to fool the voters in the same way as Graham Plattner, right? Who had a Nazi tattoo, who they should have known from the beginning was not a great candidate. But yeah, I mean, there's already a bunch of people coming out, a whole lot of backlash against this guy, saying that no, he's not a real progressive, right? He's fake. So without further ado, let's get into it.
About the Maine Senate race, Jackson was awesome as a matter of inside organization with the help of the labor unions who backed him. He just swamped everybody on Saturday. It was pretty much over Saturday, but then he swamped everybody on Sunday. The delegates are not committed. They don't have to vote for him, but they're his slates. And as we said, his three top competitors dropped out. So the weekend convention is shaping up to be a coronation for the new candidate. Here he is celebrating his victory over the weekend. Troy Jackson, ladies and gentlemen, 109.
This movement has always been about working people having the opportunity, showing up, and fighting for what they deserve. I'm running for every worker who has ever been told to keep their head down, accept less, and grateful for the scraps that they're given. Too often she stood with Donald Trump and the corporations that already have too much power. She stood by while the administration attacks federal workers, unions, immigrants, healthcare, and the basic rights of Maine people.
Of course, talking about Susan Collins there, a woman who's about to become his general election opponent in about a 90-day general election campaign. Here is one of many videos the Jackson campaign put out over the weekend. 111, please.
They said that a bunch of loggers could not take on the big landowners exploiting them. But we did. And they said a guy from Alleygas could not rise to the Maine Senate, and I did. And now they're going to say that a grassroots campaign powered by working people cannot defeat Susan Collins. But you know what? They're wrong. They're wrong. Power does not give working people anything out of the goodness of its heart. Sometimes you have to make the people in charge so uncomfortable that they can't ignore you anymore. We're not from the left. We're not from the right. We're from the bottom, and we're rising.
No, you're from the far left, right? You're from the communist part of the political aisle, right? That's where you're from, okay? You're from the far left.
I know what happens when working people decide that they've had enough. When we do, we stand up, we lock arms, we fight back, and then we win. Let's go to Susan Collins and send a working class fighter from the North Woods of Maine to the United States Senate.
A working class fighter from the North Woods of Maine. Jaima, impressive what they did as an inside game. There's a story in Politico today that matches my own reporting. Both a lot of Maine voters who liked Plattner's energy and campaign skills, and some political elites are worried that this guy is not going to have the outside game to beat Susan Collins. My first question to you is, do you think they're doing opposition research on themselves? Because I can tell you who is doing opposition research on Mr. Jackson is the NRSC. So do you think anybody in his life is like looking at, he used to be a Republican, he was a pro-life, pro-gun Republican.
Yeah.
And they're going to do something that people say, well, Mark, how can they do both these at once? They're going to divide him from the left by pointing out he used to be a pro-life, pro-gun Republican, but they're also going to say he's a left-wing nut. So who's doing opposition, self-oppo on this guy, do you think, if anybody?
No, they are for sure doing oppo right now. I got a text this morning from one of my colleagues in Maine, and he just said, look, Troy's a good guy, but he out-organized these individuals this weekend. That's what it was. And he, like Kamala Harris did in 2024, got on the lines and started organizing as quickly as possible, to your point, the unions. So I think he's taking this very seriously. They don't want to have another unforced error here. And so he and the party and his apparatus, they are taking the vetting pretty seriously. But he feels like he's been pretty well vetted.
Yeah, funny. Before I bring Larry in, are you, given what he did, how much more optimistic, if at all, are you that he can beat Collins, given what he showed over the weekend?
Look, I'm a little bit more optimistic than I was on Friday morning, but this is, like I said before, this is not the race that I'm going to be focused on. I don't think this is going to be the race that's going to define the United States Senate.
Larry, is it possible that this guy is acting like, oh shucks, a lumber guy, and in fact he's a brilliant political genius who's gonna trick Susan Collins out of her seat? You know what I'm saying? Like, is he actually more sophisticated politically, which will take to beat Susan Collins, than he comes off?
Yeah, it's somewhere in between. He's not brilliant, but he's definitely more sophisticated than he said. And people forget wasn't he the president of the state Senate in Maine? I mean, so by definition, you are a bit of an insider, and you've been able to, work the mechanics of a state electoral system to rise to the level of president of the Senate or the majority leader of the Senate. So he knows what he's doing. He's not some, backwoods dude, but I think he's playing that up because of the success of Graham Plattner. He doesn't have the same gifts that Plattner has. Right. If you notice that ad they just put together, which has the stirring mix and everything, he's reading the whole thing. It's not in his DNA. He can't just go up there and stump the way Plattner did off the top of his head and push all those buttons. Yeah. And he's not generic, which I always thought was going to be the best thing that Democrats could do. But we'll see. I mean, listen, anything can happen. Right. And it's funny, you're talking about Oppo research real fast. What are they going to come up with? I mean, whatever they find on him, a lot of voters are going to say, yeah, that's bad, but it's not Graham Plattner.
Just wait. Just wait. Just trust me. I told you to wait on Plattner. Trust me on this. He might survive it. I was very impressed by his operation and by him this weekend. I've upgraded his chances, but just let's see if he can survive this.
I think he's cooked. Right? I think he's cooked. Right. And the reason why I say this is because, again, look at his charisma, bro. His charisma is not great. OK, a lot of these progressives, these far leftists, they thrive based off emotion. He just doesn't seem like the type of guy that's going to get, a bunch of people out to rally for him, and that, he's going to get the type of numbers and support that he needs to beat Susan Collins. But we're going to see. You already have people who are pushing back and saying, no.
All right, you guys, been live streaming about 3 hours, probably longer than that. I'll be back later on. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Sorry for being quiet. Had a great weekend. I'll be back. Thank you guys. Like, share, and subscribe.